everyone, it's Emily with Spiceworks. Thanks for tuning in today and joining us on another Spiceworks Partner webinar, Unlock Extra Capacity from Your VMware Hybrid Cloud, brought to you by SoftwareOne and VMware. Before we get started, I want to remind everyone that the webinar will be recorded. So if you have to step away for any reason, you will get an email with a link to the video in about a week. Also, there's a Q&A box on your screen to the left. I encourage you to submit your questions at any time during the presentation. We will get to those questions at the end via a verbal Q&A. But if your question isn't addressed live, SoftwareOne and VMware will be able to follow up with you. So, now that all the housekeeping's done, I'd like to introduce our presenters. Kyle Giesler, Cloud Management and Software-Defined Storage Specialist with VMware, and Heath Chayka, SoftwareOne Technology Services. So Kyle, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Thanks so much, Emily. I appreciate the introduction, and good morning, everyone. So today we're going to talk about going beyond naked vSphere and really leveraging the power, performance, and capacity analytics for your vSphere environment. But before we do, and when I start all of these conversations, I like to talk to my customers sort of about where performance capacity analytics fit and why it's so important. The big picture here is that IT is changing, right? We're seeing the needs of our businesses putting all sorts of new and interesting demands on information technology. At VMware, we believe that that IT needs to be able to respond in a new, instant, fluid, and secure way. We're calling this brave new IT. And I just wanted to sort of lay out a quick picture of what our architecture for IT actually looks like. So this is nothing new. You've probably heard this story before. We've been talking about software-defined data center for a number of years now. And it all starts with applications. This is the reason companies invest in information technology to begin with. These are the things we use, the way we access our data every day, right? And of course, our applications, we think the best platform to run our applications on is VMware Software-Defined Data Center. Although that's evolved a lot over the last few years, and now we have a full suite of solutions to provide a true one cloud for any application architecture. And of course, this can leverage any type of hardware, build your own converged or hyper-converged, and then your applications and data can all be accessed anywhere. So VMware's architecture for IT is truly one cloud for any application on any device. This allows us to provide an intrinsically secure, seamlessly hybrid, and fully software-defined infrastructure. So that's the big picture, but today we're going to focus on what I like to call the gateway to the cloud for many of our customers, and that's performance and capacity analytics for vSphere. So if we take that big picture for a second, we think about those applications, they all run on top of abstracted and pooled hardware resources. That's what we do best at VMware, right? We make the best hypervisor on the planet. We've also recently introduced the best network and storage hypervisor as well. So all of the hardware and compute resources that we need in our data centers are now fully abstractable and poolable to make your applications completely portable. That's how we leverage hybrid cloud. That hybrid cloud, when we say it, really just means on-prem and off-prem working together seamlessly. Right? There's no secret sauce there. But in order to do that, in order to take workloads into off-prem solutions, especially cloud solutions like the Cloud Air or even some of the other non-VMware solutions that are out there, you don't want to migrate legacy, bloated, inefficient workloads. And that's where VMware's VMware's management stack comes into play. We leverage policy-based automation, intelligent operations, and transparency to the cost of infrastructure to the business. These are sort of our three pillars of VMware's management layer. Today we're going to talk about intelligent operations. I just said that it's the gateway to the cloud for many of our customers. We're going to focus on kind of the three key pillars around operations management. Improving quality of service, operational efficiency, and control and compliance. So just to talk to these for a couple of minutes, quality of service is a huge issue for most of our customers, right? The reason we virtualize is to be more efficient with our resources, but also to improve reliability of the applications we deliver to our users every day. And that's where quality of service comes in here. So if we think about what IT operations looks like for most of us every day, it's kind of becoming a little bit of a bleak picture, right? There's so much data that we're monitoring and managing, so many alerts that we get. You know, it's been a while since I've directly managed a vSphere environment, but I used to get alerts on my BlackBerry all the time, right, that I would ignore because I knew, well, that VM always does that this time of day, right? And I would often point the finger at the application owner or the database, or maybe it's the infrastructure, right? Typically, this is sort of a vicious cycle that leads to over-provisioning to accommodate for performance issues, right? Which leads to more data, which creates more alerts and more finger pointing. It's this negative feedback loop of data, right? In fact, as we've progressed in technology for the last few years, the volume of data we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis is just exploding. Thanks in large part to virtualized infrastructures and a lot of the tools and flexibilities that it provides. It's brought new challenges to the table. We call this an operations gap. So one way that we've tried to address this over the years is, by delivering solutions that help with operations. And the evolution of analytics has been key here. And I'm just going to build this slide out real quick so that you can kind of think about where we are on this journey. Traditional monitoring, Nagios, Hyperion, SCOM, these are tools that we've been using for a while, right? Event correlation came about to try and deal with, again, the mass and the volume of data that we have at our fingertips today. But true performance analytics didn't really come into play until we released vCenter Operations Manager, 5 years ago now. This is leveraging analytics to learn what's normal in your environment, create dynamic thresholds, and really track what's important. I'm happy to tell you, if you didn't know, that back in January, we launched the latest version of vRealize Operations, which really brings predictive analytics to the table. And this is the ability to look at not just our structured data, but our unstructured data as well, look at various symptoms and identify root cause, and take it all the way to recommending solutions to those problems. This is leveraging analytics, leveraging automation, leveraging structured and unstructured data, and pulling all of that together to provide one cohesive picture of the operations in our virtual data centers. So to sort of double click on this for a second, to deliver quality of service, we need a couple of key things. We need self-learning and predictive analytics. I'm happy to tell you that the vRealize Operations solution has the best, most powerful patented analytics of any of the operational analytics tools that are on the market today. We've been developing it and closely integrating it with vSphere for years. But in our latest release, we've brought to market a new feature called Smart Alerts. This is the key capability that helps us filter out the noise, if you will. And then the extensibility to focus on very specific applications, hardware infrastructures, and other components within your data center, right? So with self-learning analytics, we save a lot of time, first off, without having to define arbitrary thresholds for values that we're monitoring. In fact, it's probably one of the slickest parts about our operations solution is that you don't have to spend a lot of time defining what's normal and what's abnormal and what should generate an alert, right? vRealize Operations does that for you. Also, it's a key goal for our solution set to reduce the amount of alerts and notifications that you get, so that what gets bubbled up to the top really is the things that are the most important. Right? I'd like to drill into that for you here, and what I'm going to do as I go through this and kind of talk about these key pillars is sort of show you some examples of how this solution kind of tries to solve these problems. So on quality of service, these sort of key differentiators for our analytics engine are dynamic thresholds. If you think about all of the metrics that vCenter creates every day, what our solution set really does at its core is it stores and historically analyzes all of those metrics. So over time, we actually have a really crisp view on what is normal in your environment. Dynamic thresholds take every single metric that we track and create an upper and lower threshold. So when you get an alert from VMware that say a given VM's CPU utilization is above 80%, take that as an example. That's not just an arbitrary, 75% was the threshold, now you're getting an alert. If you're getting an alert that says this CPU utilization is 80, it's because that's abnormal, either above or below the dynamic threshold that's created. Every single metric, whether it's CPU utilization or I/O latency or disk capacity, gets a dynamic threshold allocated to it. Dynamic thresholds mean that the alerts that you get are meaningful, right? They're valuable to you because it's something that's abnormal, not expected behavior. Another key differentiator are the idea of supermetrics. So health, risk, and efficiency is a score that every object in your vCenter environment gets. So you can look at a host and see right at the top how healthy it is, how much capacity risk there is, and how efficiently you're using that given resource. This idea of supermetrics is not just limited to things that we've predefined. You can actually build custom supermetrics for an entire application. Think about all the hosts, all the data stores, all of the virtual machines, all the components that go into your Exchange implementation, or SAP, or any other business critical application. You can now keep a supermetric that monitors the health, risk, and efficiency of that specific application, and create custom dashboards that allow application owners to monitor that 24 hours a day. So really powerful in rolling up scores of these health, risk, and efficiency scores to create meaningful at-a-glance information. The third key differentiator is predictive analytics. So I mentioned historical analytics. We do analyze everything from the time VROps is installed in your environment. We analyze every single metric for years, even. What that does is it allows us to look into the future. So we can look at your capacity consumption. We can look at your average virtual machine sizes, and we can make very accurate predictions about where you're going to be in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, even further out. So from a quality of service perspective, you can focus on providing the capacity that your applications need to maintain an expected level of service. One thing that I ask vSphere administrators all the time, and some of you probably will understand why, is, are your users the first to report performance problems? If they are, I know how you feel about that, right? You'd like to have a better handle on your environment. This is the kind of solution that's going to give you the ability to do that. So I'm going to break this out and show you kind of what the interface looks like, talk a little bit about the solution here in a second. But I just wanted to double click on predictive analytics. Based on all the historical information that we have, right? We can look at what's happening right now and what we're projecting over time. vRealize Operations has evolved a lot in the last few years to really be a tool to sort of plan IT infrastructure projects based on historical and current utilization. I'll talk about projects in a few minutes, but it's a really powerful evolution of our what-if scenario feature you may be familiar with. So let's kind of drill in quickly on health, risk, and efficiency. I mentioned before these are scores that every object has. What you're seeing here is a screenshot of the recommendations dashboard. This is sort of the home page when you come into vRealize operations. It's showing you the health, risk, and efficiency of whatever object is selected and sort of the top recommendations for that object. In this case, we've got, I think it's a cluster or maybe a data center selected. And I can tell that because when you look at health, you see this little weather map here, all those green, yellow, red chiclets. That's every object in your environment. That's a host, the data store, the virtual machine, it's a cluster. So you can tell right off the bat, even if you don't know anything about vRealize operations, there's some issues in this environment, right? Health is red, risk is red, efficiency is green. Maybe there's not a lot of waste, but there's definitely some performance and capacity risk issues here. And that's the beauty of the supermetrics feature is, you can look at it quickly and innately understand, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to sort of drill into what these recommendations look like. Here, we're getting a performance alert because I/O latency is contributing to degraded health on 7 objects. And you can see that right here based on this recommendation. Clicking on that will take us to a detailed view for that given metric, and we can see, where that happened and why, and sort of correlate that with other event data. We're also going to present right at the top a recommendation of how to solve that problem, right? And it's possible. There are many, automated remediation steps that can be taken. It's possible for there to be a button right there. So delete old snapshots is a great example. With one click of a button, you can delete the old snapshots for a given virtual machine and improve its performance. So we're taking it from not just identifying problems, which in and of itself is great, but telling you all of the factors that are contributing to it and then giving you sort of a one button to click to solve it. It's really a holistic approach. And real quick, these aren't things that, these aren't just canned capabilities, right? You can build your own custom alerts based on your own custom symptom combinations and even apply your own custom remediation actions. Anything you can build in Orchestrator, which is, if you don't know, one of the most powerful vSphere tools that's available to you that you already own. You can build a remediation action out of an Orchestrator workflow and fire it off with one click of a button inside vRealize operations. So when we talked about the difference of structured and unstructured data and using that to sort of correlate alerts, symptoms, and responses, we've got tighter integration with vRealize Log Insight now than we ever did before. So we can take everything that's in your vSphere, vCenter database. We can import all of your structured data in your data center, but we can also take all the unstructured data. Anything that generates a log can now be correlated and analyzed in the same way that the metrics that we track in vCenter can be. An extremely powerful, call it last mile of troubleshooting tool. If you've heard of Splunk, we're talking about the same kind of thing here. Log analytics, not just for vSphere, but for all of the logs in your data center with a much more attractive pricing schema too, by the way. So another thing that I don't really have more than one slide on in this deck, but I want to talk about is sort of how you can use vRealize operations to improve the way you troubleshoot in your environment. So I tried to build, there it is. I tried to build out sort of a little screenshot walkthrough of what it feels like to look at a supermetric, identify that there's an issue, drill into it, and try and get to root cause. So take here a custom dashboard that monitors, in this case, the health of my online sales application in the Amazon cloud. So here we can see that this online sales application has a health score of 63, right? So we can see that there's degraded health. By clicking on the application, we can get a heat map view that shows us that this given application component is the problem, right? Clicking on that takes us into a health tree that shows us all the related components, and we can see a poor health score on a given Oracle database, which can then be correlated down on the bottom to events that Hyperic observed, some period of time ago. So we can see that this application was tooling along just fine, or this database, and something happened to affect performance significantly. And we can correlate all those things together and really get to the bottom of what would have been an extremely complex issue, maybe even days of troubleshooting. You can get to it in a matter of minutes with some clicks through vRealize operations. Remarkably powerful capability. Some of our customers have told us that they get as much as 40% of their time back from troubleshooting vSphere environments. So, I know it's kind of an intangible, but definitely something that's really valuable. Probably the most frequently touted capability of our management stack is operational efficiency. It's the idea of reclaiming waste and right-sizing virtual machines in our environment. So that's the next thing I'm going to talk about here. What you have to do to sort of start is look at your overall organization and understand how efficiently you think you're using resources today, and where you want to fit on an efficiency scale. Maybe you're okay with a lot of over provisioning. Those buffers keep your application safe. You're protected from host failures, those kind of things, right? So let's talk about some of the key capabilities in vRealize operations around operational efficiency. I mentioned guided remediation before around quality of service. Capacity optimization across the whole stack, both from the perspective of any of the four most important resources. So in virtualization, we care about CPU, memory, network, and disk, right? So we track each one of those from a metric of capacity, right? So observed network bandwidth, capacity. I/O performance is capacity. Disk space is also capacity, right? Available memory on the host. So we look at this and try and determine what is the most efficient use of resources in your environment, and what the applications within your virtual machines actually require. The more data we have, the more historical background we've got to observe your applications, so the more accurate our predictions become. We're going to step through some of that right now. So here's another dashboard that shows us the poor health score, right? There's some sort of immediate issue there. But by selecting, by drilling, double-clicking on that red health score, we can see, right, that in this case, disk latency on a given data store is what's causing performance problems, right? We can see that that's not all, right? It's latency, and there's other virtual machines on that given data store that are affecting it. You may have heard that referred to as the noisy neighbor, right? If you've got a lot of really active VMs on one data store, clearly that affects performance. Performance capacity, I guess. We'll give you recommendations right off the bat. Do a storage vMotion on this virtual machine to improve its performance, right? That's the high-level recommendation here, right? And we can see what all the symptoms are that sort of correlate to that recommendation, or sort of help build that recommendation, right? And then you can choose an automated remediation action. You can click the Migrate VM button, and instantly you start a storage vMotion, and should improve the performance situation there on that machine, right? The next thing that I wanted to kind of talk to, and sorry for skipping that slide, I meant to take it out. I wanted to talk about capacity management, right? Compute, storage, network, all the things that we care about. All of our applications require some level of those, of each of those four resources on a given at any given time of the day, right? More often than not, the application owners have asked for configurations that are typically much bigger than what their applications will actually require, right? And it's our job in IT to give application owners everything they need while at the same time, using the company's resources as efficiently as possible. So what you can do with this is analyze the performance and utilization of a given application over time, and then use the reporting capabilities and the analytics within this tool to actually determine what the right size and the right configuration for a given metric may be. So to step through, kind of what this workflow might look like. Here we can see a red capacity score. I don't know if this screenshot looks pixelated to you guys. I'm sorry if it's a little fuzzy. That's the way it's coming across to me. But essentially, you can see here a big red bar indicating that we've used up all the capacity that's available on this given data center that we have selected, right? We get a little blue bar that indicates our high availability buffers and any other buffers we may have manually configured. And we can see in no uncertain terms, how much CPU, memory, network, disk is configured, how much is being is allocated, how much is being consumed, and how much is being demanded at any given point in time. So we get a real granular and detailed view of all the things that are important in our data center. So to kind of follow this out, I know that in this particular production data center, I'm out of capacity. So I need to plan an infrastructure growth, right? This is where we leverage the project's capability within VROps. So within a project, we can define, how many new virtual machines we're going to need to add to our environment, or how many more hosts we're planning on purchasing, and we can model those changes against the analytics engine and determine if it's going to solve our given requirement, right? If I add these many hosts of this configuration, am I going to get enough capacity for the number of virtual machines I'm going to need? There's all sorts of tweaks and knobs you can turn on these projects, but it essentially lets you plan a new storage project, a new host project, or a new application project, all against the historical usage data within your vSphere environment today. So remarkably new project planning capability. So we can see in this particular scenario, I've built out a project to add a new application, which is going to require so many virtual machines, capacity I don't have today. I can add to that project the plan of adding more hosts in the future, and I can see that modeled in real time against the projections for capacity utilization. When I say it like that, it sounds kind of dry, but to be honest with you, it's one of the coolest capabilities within VROps is to really take the guesswork out of your next purchase of storage or servers or capacity addition for some sort of new application. Right? Really, really powerful capability. Optimization is kind of the next key thing that I want to talk about. I mentioned right sizing a few times, and this is where we're talking about this. Within a couple of, maybe 2 weeks, a little more than 2 weeks of running VROps, we've got enough data about the usage of your environment to make some accurate assumptions of which of your virtual machines are fully over-provisioned. So this is where you actually get to reclaim those resources that are being consumed in your data center. So here we've got a cluster selected, and we're looking at the reclaimable capacity badge. I know that's hard to read, and I apologize for that, you guys. But here we can see that this particular cluster has a certain amount of powered off VMs, a certain amount of oversized VMs, and a certain amount of idle virtual machines, all of which are considered waste, right? So from here, you can literally drill into, each virtual machine, and you'll be presented with options to reconfigure those for the right size. So in this case, this given virtual machine has too many CPUs allocated. You've got a contextual option right there to click and reconfigure the number of CPUs allocated. In fact, as I mentioned before, after a couple of weeks, you can run a report right out of the solution that will list every single virtual machine and how it's configured and how we would recommend that you configure it based on its historical usage. Really, really powerful tool. For most customers, when we do this, and I'm sure Heath might have a few comments about this towards the end when we're talking about the optimization assessments that we can do for our customers. Most customers will find at least a server or two's worth of capacity that's being wasted in their environment today. So I would say if you're not using this solution today, it definitely behooves you to download it, install it, run a trial, let SoftwareOne help you optimize your vSphere environment and leverage the vSphere optimization assessment that they're so good at doing, because really right-sizing your virtual environment is sort of the key to moving forward and adopting any kind of cloud strategy. So the one last piece that often gets overlooked because optimization and quality of service is such key focuses for us in IT, but that's control and compliance. So many of our internal customers are going outside of IT, going around IT, and creating these shadow IT components, whether they're Amazon EC2 instances or Dropbox storage, right? If it's something that your users are using to store company information and it's not within your sphere of control, those are risks, right? Those are big security risks for your organization. So I wanted to kind of talk to some of the ways vRealize Ops helps you pull back in control and watch compliance. In fact, we've got a fantastic solution. If you have any compliance or regulatory compliance requirements, HIPAA, SOX, PCI, any of those sort of things, we have the most robust solution on the market for monitoring your adherence to those compliance standards. And I'll talk about that in a second. Right out of the box, vRealize Operations 6 has a compliance pack for the vSphere hardening guide. If you all didn't know this, we've been publishing a hardening guide for vSphere for a number of years, and it's usually a big, thick PDF with lots of recommendations on how to configure your vSphere environment to be as secure as possible. Well, now we've included that as a compliance pack within vRealize Ops. So you can actually monitor your compliance against the vSphere hardening guide right out of the box with this solution. So very powerful. And again, as you might expect, one-click remediation to solve any non-compliance against that. So when we're talking about compliance challenges, it's not just things like regulatory compliance or vSphere hardening, HIPAA or SOX, those sort of things. It could also mean your own internal access controls, your own policies for compliance. Maybe you have your own regulations on how users can leverage the infrastructure in IT. You can build your own compliance monitoring solutions or your own compliance rules and monitor against those on a continual basis. So we also let you leverage third-party compliance packs, right? Things from Microsoft or Cisco or or lots of other vendors that are all available out on VMware Solution Exchange. So the ability to leverage our compliance monitoring capabilities, not just big regulation or configuration compliance, but it stretches the gamut across all the applications and hardware that you more than likely use in your data center today. Managing those, managing access to not just your compliance templates, but dashboards and actual application metrics, it's all done in a very granular policy-based way in vRealize operations. So let's assume, let's kind of walk through a compliance scenario real quick. When you have a compliance pack installed, there's another badge, and it's the compliance badge. And it's constantly giving you a score of how compliant your infrastructure is against whatever that compliance rule is. In this case, we're looking, I think, at the vSphere hardening guide. So we're constantly monitoring that. We're constantly monitoring the rules of the compliance pack versus the existing configuration of the environment and providing a score. So you know kind of right off the top where you are. But it also gives you the ability to sort of dig into that, and leveraging a VMware Configuration Manager, you can actually remediate against any compliance standard, right? So you can take an action against whatever you're out of compliance on. And again, that action can be a canned reconfiguration, or a custom orchestrator workflow, or even even like a shell script, right? So there's remarkably powerful remediation actions that can come as a result of being alerted to a compliance failure, right? For those of you that do have auditors, what the compliance portion of vROps lets you do when that auditor shows up is you basically get to give them a stack of all of your compliance metrics and say, have fun. Right here, we monitor our compliance every single day with VMware's Configuration Manager and with vRealize Ops. And here we know what we're in compliance on, what we're not, and why, and it's all 100% documented. That all by itself for a lot of customers is enough to buy in on a bigger solution. The best part for me in talking about this set of solutions is it's kind of a no-brainer for a lot of our customers. You get a ton more visibility on your vSphere environment, not just on the performance issues or the quality of service that you're offering to your users, but around right sizing and using every dollar that you spend on IT as efficiently as possible. Another great piece here is that you actually get to reduce the money you spend on infrastructure. I said it a minute ago that most customers that install vROps find 1 or 2 servers worth of capacity they can reclaim. Those are in small environments. If you've got thousands of VMs, you could find a lot more than 1 host's worth of capacity you can reclaim. In fact, most customers say they skip the next server refresh cycle after right-sizing all of the workloads in their data center. That's huge, right? And the ability to decrease application downtime, or said another way, increase the service level of the applications you deliver to the business. All of this put together gives IT the ability to stop fighting fires every day and start focusing on really innovating and driving value back to the business. I think that's probably my favorite way to sort of sum up what the value is of this set of solutions. We do a lot of analyzing of data here at VMware, and what's really powerful here is that 88% of our customers agree that they see the value in this solution within 3 months. That's huge. 1 quarter's worth of running this tool, and you get it. And people tell you at the end, I'm sure that a lot of customers get it a lot sooner than that. In fact, right here on this pie chart, less than 1 month, 41% of our customers say they see the value in the solution in less than that speaks for itself as far as I'm concerned. So just to kind of sum up on operations management and why I think it's the gateway to the cloud, it's purpose-built for the mobile cloud era, right? We've got all sorts of dynamicism in our IT environments these days. We need an analytics tool that can watch things as they change and give us that real-time feedback on the quality of the service and the operational efficiency that we're leveraging. Also, taking advantage of policy-based automation is the only way that we're going to scale these lean IT organizations handling massive amounts of applications and data. Right? Customers see a really fast time to value on this set of solutions, not just because it's relatively inexpensive compared to what you're already spending on vSphere licensing, but because of all of the added benefits and time you get back in your day. Right? And I'll tell you, it's not just patented analytics or constantly updated compliance packs and newer versions of our remediation solutions, but it's a technology that's being delivered from the same company that's running underneath all of your applications today. I think it's kind of cliche to call us a trusted leader, but the reality is we are. And when you look at market share around operations management, this is a space where our customers also trust us more than any of the other competitors. So you might be asking yourself, how do you put your toe in the water here, right? How do you certainly go to VMware.com and download a demo of vRealize Ops. But what I tell most of my customers to do is to talk to a partner of ours, like SoftwareOne, who's really good at shepherding you through all of the decisions and thought processes that you have to make around instituting an operational analytics model in IT. And that was what I wanted Keith to talk about today, was sort of how SoftwareOne approaches these vSphere optimization assessments. Keith, are you there?
Hi, Cal. Thank you. Yes. So for SoftwareOne's approach on the VMware optimization assessment is very straightforward. We do it in 4 sessions where it's just a simple install. We come back, we'll do it on a 15-day checkup. We'll also do a 30-day checkup, and then we'll finalize it with a presentation. For SoftwareOne's presentation we'll give recommendations of all the different analytics and collections that we grab from the operations manager, and we give the customer recommendations of what we see of how they can really optimize their environment off of what we see from the operations manager. For the VOA, we recommend installing the operations manager along with the Log Insight tool to really feel that this is a full 360 view and insight into the virtual environment, and it really helps not only in seeing what's going on in their virtual environment, but it really gives them an easy way to troubleshoot their environment. And here at SoftwareOne, we have over 25 VMware technical certified professionals. We are a global VMware Premier partner. We've been through many VOAs, through small business, through enterprise level. Also, we have a vblog that we have created for customers to just easily, just a 2 or 3 minute video to kind of let you guys know of how and what a VOA is and how SoftwareOne does it. We have a link here on the page you can go to and just look at the video, and it just shows exactly what the process is, what it covers, both the appliances and kind of what we go over in the VOA. And we have done many of those, and just to be a good introduction to it.
I've worked with a lot of partners in our solution provider space that provide these vSphere optimization assessments, and I have to say I think it fits the way SoftwareOne goes to market very nicely. I mean, they're used to doing assessments for their customers, right? And certainly the expertise of the team is unmatched across the solution provider route to market. So I really appreciate that you guys are doing this, and I think you add a lot of value for your customers. Emily, maybe we should answer some of these 10,000 questions that are coming in. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. We can get to those right now. But I do encourage our audience to continue to get those questions in for Kyle and for Heath, and we'll get those answered. So our first question is from Austin. Austin asks, can we get a download link to the vSphere hardening guide? Is that going to be available?
Well, so tell me, I'm looking here. It looks like Heath answered that question with a link. Did that get pushed out to everybody? So it's real simple, folks. If you just want to Google vSphere hardening guide, first thing that comes up will be a list of all of the different hardening guides for the different editions of vSphere. So you can absolutely find that in its traditional document format. When you use vRealize Operations 6 and you follow the deploy guide document that's on our website, there's a section on loading the vSphere hardening guide as a compliance pack. It's included with the download, but it's not turned on by default. You just have to step through a couple of steps to turn that on. So you can get it from that link he posted, or it'll come with VROps 6 when you download that fresh, or when software one installs it for you.
Awesome. So our next question is from Brian. Brian asks, if the metrics captured by Operations Manager go back 6 years, is it using all that data to determine the prediction, or is it only using a portion of it?
That's a really great question, Brian. And by default, I believe the settings are set to capture 6 months, like a 6-month rolling window. You can absolutely set that to unlimited. So yes, you could store 6 years of data. You'd need a really big data store, right? But you could absolutely do that, and then yes, that historical information would be taken into account when making usage predictions. Although what you got to take into account there is your business cycle, right? How often do things change in your business cycle? A lot of us here at VMware, we're very quarter by quarter driven, right? Something that happens week 1 in the quarter usually happens week 1 in the quarter every quarter, right? There's not things that, processes that, typically happen on the half or surges of utilization, that happen at odd times. We're pretty quarter by quarter driven. Given that, if I were monitoring my entire vSphere environment, I'd probably define a 6-month window as the right sort of historical amount of metrics to keep. It also depends on, a lot of other factors. If you're in the advanced and enterprise versions of VROps, you might be monitoring 200 different metrics just on one given SQL server. That'll create a lot more data and require a lot more storage. It might not be necessary to go back that far, right? So that's definitely something that the folks at Software One will help you out with when setting up a vSphere optimization system.
Fantastic. Our next question is from James. James asks, will the self-learning get to a point where it can correlate data from alerts to give reasons for the problems? Say at 3 every day, VM2 caps out on memory because the SQL database gets queried by X users.
So yeah, and he's had a really good answer to that, and I'll add some color. So if something happens at 3 o'clock every day, one of the badges that, so I didn't go into detail on this, but the risk badge that I did talk about actually has 3 minor badges that sort of roll up that score. One of those is stress. So you'll actually see graphically when you select that virtual machine that spikes every day at 3 o'clock, you'll actually see a big red blob on a heat map at 3 o'clock every day for that particular VM. So it'll absolutely observe that. And yes, if you're leveraging things like Log Insight, which can tie all the way back into the SQL database logs, or if you're using Hyperion to monitor SQL, as I mentioned a minute ago, there's hundreds of metrics that it can monitor on a given SQL database instance. Then it will absolutely correlate those things and make a recommendation on how to fix that. You bet. The power of analytics.
Our next question is, what is the right size environment for these operation solutions? Do I have to have thousands of VMs?
That's a really good question. Typically when customers ask that, it's from the perspective of, how much money am I going to spend on VR ops versus having naked vSphere, and when does it make sense? What we tell customers is, and the way we package VR ops makes it really easy for even the smallest shops of, 20 or 50 VMs to take advantage of operational analytics. Definitely, the bigger the environment, the more waste you have to reclaim. But we say the sort of break-even point for the money you'll spend on the licensing versus what you'll save is somewhere around 50 or 75 VMs. It's kind of the crossover point where it absolutely makes sense to be using VR ops day in and day out.
Fantastic. Our next question is, what is the real-life benefit of reclaiming capacity? The money is already spent. It's not like I'm going to get it back.
Well, that's absolutely true. All of our industry analysis says one vCPU is roughly $370 is what you pay for that. So just think, in even a small environment, if you can reclaim 10 vCPUs, right, you're talking about maybe one small server's worth of dollars. You're right. You're not going to get money back from that. But next quarter, you won't have to buy another server when you grow. That's for sure. Maybe 2 quarters out. So yes, you don't see the cash back, but that's money that you wouldn't have to spend in the future. You can spend on something else, I guess is the way I look at that. Steve, jump in here if you feel any different on any of these things. That's kind of my take on that.
Great. So
there's other benefits. Okay, yeah, let's go through this.
Yeah, but definitely encourage our audience. You still have time to get a couple questions in, so get those questions in for Heath and Kyle. So our next question is, why do I need more management if I already have vCenter managing my virtual environment?
Good question. I'm going to bet that one came in early in the presentation because hopefully I kind of hit on some of that. vCenter is great. It absolutely lets you manage your environment. You can turn VMs on. You can turn them off. You can do vMotions, all of that fantastic stuff. What it doesn't do is tell you if you have a VM configured correctly or if it's over-provisioned, if there's too many CPUs or too much RAM for the workload that's running inside it. That's what you need the analytics for, and that's the difference. Pretty straightforward.
Great. Our next question is, how much time do I really have to be involved in this VOA engagement process?
That's a great question.
Yeah, go ahead.
For the assessment, so for how Software One does it, we do it in 4 short meetings. We do an install meeting, which is about 2 hours, so it can be up 1.5 hours to 2 hours to install both appliances and get it in to your vCenter correctly. Both appliances are just they're small virtual appliances that we just put in a vCenter for the installation process. And then from the next meeting, we let the operations manager collect metrics, and we'll come back 15 days later at a 15-day checkup. We'll then go over your health data and look at your workloads, and we'll explain what kind of results we have on the dashboard at that time. And then we'll let it sit for another 15 days, and at the 30-day mark, we'll look back and we'll look over the whole dashboard in depth, because at this time, the operation manager have collected enough metrics really for the whole dashboard to be accurate. We'll look at the health badge, the risk badge, which shows future risks, and then we'll also look at your efficiency and see what kind of reclaimable waste you have. And then just the last meeting will be the presentation on the report that covers all of the things that we found throughout the 30-day engagement, and we'll give you our recommendations on what the next steps are. So it's really not too bad of an involvement.
Hey, Heath, let me throw one of these other questions at you. How is that, what do you guys do that's different? I like your 4-step process. A lot of partners don't do it that way. Is there anything else you'd call out on, that you guys do differently around VOA that that would be a reason to go with Software One versus another partner?
Yeah, that's a great question. So here at Software One, we have a high level of expertise on VMware. And for the VOA, we recommend installing both the Operations Manager with a login site. Kind of like I said before, is that it gives you a whole 360 insight to your VMware environment. So what we do different is that we go over both of these appliances in great detail with the customer, just so they know the full potential of both of them and why they really need them. We'll go over with the Operations Manager not only what kind of analytics it shows, what kind of reclaimable waste, but features such as projects that are probably the most underrated feature that within Operations Manager. I currently have a customer that I'm dealing with that he wanted to know from a disaster recovery standpoint, how many hosts would he have to build to support all the VMs within his virtual environment. And we could easily plan that out within projects just by implementing hosts with the exact same resources that he had on-prem. Within projects, you can pick the same host that you have within your vCenter, and then you can also pick the exact same VMs that have the exact same resource capacity and just put it on that host and figure it out. It's a really easy tool to work with. We'll go over that in detail if customers ask it. We'll also go over Log Insight is another one that we'll go over in good detail, and we'll look at the dashboard. It shows all the different errors that may happen in the virtual environment, what kind of events happen. Also show them how to dive deeper and really troubleshoot different problems with that. So we really show a customer the full potential of both these appliances. That's really what we do different with that Software One.
Great. So we have another question from Chris, and he asks if this is a fixed cost process and if you can talk a bit more about pricing.
So that's for the VOA with Software One, it is actually no cost. We are currently doing a promotion where it is a no-cost engagement to do this 30-day assessment with the customer. Kyle, do you want to answer on what it is after the fact to buy the appliances?
Sure. Well, as is usually the answer in IT and software, it depends, right? It depends on what edition of the Realize Ops you guys settle on is the right one for a given customer. The easiest way for our customers to get into using operational analytics every day is a version of licensing that we call vSphere with Operations Management. So the same vSphere license that you buy today, maybe it's Standard, Enterprise, or Enterprise Plus, you can get an upgrade to vSOM, which entitles you to use the standard version of the Realize Ops, which does all the capacity modeling and performance analytics. The last I looked, that was list price, $800 difference from the standard Enterprise and Enterprise Plus level licensing that you already paid for. And that entitles you to an unlimited number of virtual machines that are managed and monitored by vRealize Ops. One of the things that Heath can do at the end of your vSphere optimization assessment is actually look at your reclaimable waste and plug that into a really simple little calculator that will compare what you're wasting today to what it would cost you to upgrade with your existing license count. That's kind of real simple mathematics exercise for us to figure out what it's going to cost you to upgrade to the right edition of either vSOM or a full vRealize Operations Suite, and then compare that to what you're wasting today and what you could potentially reclaim. So, short answer, it depends, but for most customers, simple upgrade of $800 per processor for vSphere list price. Should give you some idea there.
Great. So we do just
and
have
Software One, I would say Software One's definitely the right folks to ask about pricing, right? Once they do the optimization assessment in your environment, they can show you what all the different costs would be for different editions and levels.
Great. So we do just have a couple more questions before we wrap up. And so our next question is, why do you recommend putting Log Insight with Operations Manager?
A great question. So we like to put these two products together because it's a true solution where you have a full 360 insight into your virtual environment. And we really truly believe that having both of these in your environment help cut down shooting time, because not only does the operation show exactly what you need to see on the front end of how the metrics grab the immediate problems, but you can also dig deeper with Log Insight on the back end with the logs. And it really helps put everything together. It's really helpful with the machine learning capabilities it has, and it just really gives that full insight to the virtual environment.
Great. And our final question is, what does Software One do different with the VOA than other partners?
Well, it's funny. I just asked that one of Heath a minute ago. Why don't you recap that for us?
Sure. Yeah, so here at Software One, we have a great expertise on staff about VMware. We really do go over both of the appliances, vRealize Operations Manager and vRealize Log Insight in good detail. We go over all the features within both of them. We'll give you great troubleshooting tips on both appliances, and we also go over different features such as projects, probably the most underrated feature within Operations Manager. So yeah, we give you a full good detail on every use case that you can use this for. So if you ask for something, we'll definitely give you a good go around on how to use it.
Awesome. Thanks for that fantastic presentation, Kyle and Heath. Do y'all have any final words for our audience before we let them go for the day?
I would just like to say one thing for our audience there. Please check out the blog, the video blog about the VOA from Software One. I believe we'll be giving this deck out to the audience. If not, just write down that short link there and look at it. Also, you can contact us at Software One. Just email vmware.us@softwareone.com, and then we can get you situated and get you going on a VOA.
That's great. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. So thank you both for that fantastic presentation. Hopefully everybody was able to learn a bit more about unlocking extra capacity from your VMware hybrid cloud. I want to remind you all that if your question wasn't addressed live, Software One and VMware will be able to follow up with you. Also, if you had to step out or miss any part of today's presentation, you will be receiving an email in a few days with a link to view the webinar on demand. Special thanks to Software One and VMware for sponsoring today's event, and thanks for each and every one of you for tuning in today. We hope to see you back soon for another Spiceworks Partner webinar. But until then, stay spicy.